What happens to someone whose body is completely destroyed? For thousands of years, people have buried their dead. Others have cremated them. Some have been lost at sea. Others perished in fires, wars, or natural disasters. Yet one question has remained. Does the way a body returns to the earth change? What happens after death? Many people believe. The Book of Enoch answers questions. The Bible only briefly touches questions about the angels, judgment, the afterlife, and the unseen world. But does Enoch actually say anything about cremation? Or have modern readers placed words into the text that were never there? Tonight, we're going to find out. In today's world, cremation has become increasingly common. Some choose it for financial reasons. Others because of personal wishes. Still others because circumstances leave no alternative. Yet many believers continue asking, will cremation affect the resurrection? Does burning the body change its destiny? And perhaps most importantly, what would someone living in Enoch's world have believed? Before we continue, if you enjoy exploring biblical mysteries, ancient texts, and forgotten history through careful research rather than speculation, subscribe to the 9th tablet. Every week, we investigate another ancient mystery and follow the evidence wherever it leads. Before we open the Book of Enoch, we must first understand one important fact. The ancient world did not think about death the way we do today. To them, death was not simply the end of physical life. It marked the beginning of another journey. A journey that every soul would eventually take. But where did that journey begin? The Book of Enoch contains one of the earliest and most detailed descriptions of where the dead wait before the final judgment. Not heaven, not the final lake of fire, but a place of waiting, a place where the righteous and the wicked are separated until the day God brings every soul into judgment. If that's true, then perhaps the real question never was, what happened to the body? Perhaps the ancient writers were far more interested in what happened to the soul. But before we answer whether cremation changes a person's eternal destiny, we must first answer a much older question. According to the Book of Enoch, where are the dead actually go? Because until we understand the destination, we cannot understand whether the condition of the body matters at all. The answer begins not with a funeral, not with a grave, but with a vision. In the Book of Enoch, the patriarch is led to a place unlike anything described elsewhere in the Old Testament. Hidden beneath the earth, he sees enormous hollow places, separated chambers, each prepared for different groups of the dead. This vision appears in 1 Enoch, chapter 22. And it would profoundly influence later Jewish thought about the afterlife. Unable to understand what he is seeing, Enoch asks his heavenly guide a simple question. Why are these places separated? The angel Raphael answers that these chambers have been prepared for the spirits of the dead, not for their bodies, their spirits, until the day of final judgment. Notice what the vision focuses on. Not bones, not tombs, not ashes, but the soul. Raphael explains that one chamber belongs to the righteous, those who lived faithfully. I'm waiting for the day God will judge all humanity. It is not yet their final reward. It is a place of expectation, a place of peace. Before we go any further, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Based on what we've uncovered so far, do you think the Book of Enoch is describing a literal place, or using symbolic language to explain spiritual realities? Share your thoughts below, and let's keep the discussion respectful. Another chamber is reserved for those who rejected righteousness. Unlike the first, this place carries no sense of hope. Its occupants await judgment, not because they have already received their final punishment, but because their sentences has not yet been carried out. Even here, judgment still lies ahead. The vision becomes even more remarkable. Raphael explains that these divisions exist because not every person shares the same destiny. The righteous, the wicked, those who suffered injustice, those awaiting judgment. Each is separated until the appointed time. This is one of the earliest Jewish texts to describe a structured waiting place for the dead. Now notice what the vision never mentions. It never asks whether the body was buried, burned, lost at sea, or destroyed. The condition of the earthly body is never presented as determined where the spirit waits. Instead, the focus remains on life each person lived before death. That observation raises an important question. If Enoch's vision focuses on the spirit, why have so many believers? I'm worried about cremation. To answer that, we must leave the Book of Enoch for a moment and examine the burial practices of the ancient Israelites, because I understand their customs may explain why this question still matters today. If you've ever read the Old Testament, you may have noticed one consistent pattern. Abraham was buried. Sarah was buried. Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, David, and countless others were all laid to rest in tombs or family burial places. Burial was the normal practice throughout ancient Israel. But why? Was burial a command from God, or simply the custom of the ancient world? The answer begins in the opening chapters of Genesis. After humanity's fall, God declares, "For dust you are, and to dust you shall return." Those words became deeply rooted in Israel's understanding of death. The body returned to the earth. The breath of life returned to God. Burial reflected that hope, not because the grave possessed special power, but because it symbolized the body's return to the Creator. Burial also carried another meaning. Families longed to rest with their ancestors. The scriptures repeatedly describe men and women being gathered to their people. For ancient Israel, the family tomb was more than a place of mourning. It was a reminder of covenant, heritage, and hope. If you've made it this far, you're exactly the kind of viewer this channel is made for. Here on the 9th tablet, we don't simply repeat traditions. We examine the scriptures, the ancient texts, and the historical evidence to better understand what they actually say. If you enjoy investigations like this, I'd love to have you subscribe. Interestingly, Israel's neighbors did not always follow the same practice. Among certain Greek and Roman cultures, cremation was common. Bodies were burned, their ashes collected, and placed inside ornate urns. Different civilizations held different beliefs about death. Yet Israel continued to favor burial. Not because Scripture explicitly declared cremation is impossible for resurrection, but because of burial had become the covenant tradition. But history also tells another story. Not every faithful person could be buried. Some died at sea. Others were consumed by fire. Some perished during wars. Their bodies never recovered. Would God be unable to raise them? The scriptures never suggest such a thing. God, who formed humanity from the dust, would hardly be limited by the condition of the human body. Which brings us back to our original question. If burial was Israel's custom, and the Book of Enoch focuses on the soul, where was the fear of cremation actually come from? To answer that, we must examine what Jesus, his apostles, and the earliest Christians believed about resurrection, because their answer may surprise you. By the time of Jesus, burial remained the normal Jewish practice. The dead were wrapped in linen, placed inside tombs, and mourned by family and friends. Even Jesus himself was laid in a borrowed tomb. But here's something remarkable. Nowhere in the recorded teachings of Jesus does he say that cremation prevents resurrection. In fact, he never discusses cremation at all. Instead, Jesus continually pointed to something greater. The power of God. When challenged by those who denied the resurrection, Jesus reminded them that nothing is impossible for God, the Creator, who formed Adam from the dust, needs no intact body to restore life. His power is not limited by fire, water, time, or decay. Years later, the Apostle Paul addressed the resurrection in extraordinary detail. Writing to the Corinthians, he compared the human body to a seed. A seed must first perish before new life emerges. The body that is buried is not the same body that is raised. It is transformed, imperishable, glorious, powerful. Paul's emphasis never was on preserving the earthly body. His emphasis was on God's power to give new life. We're about to reach the part that changed everything for many readers. Stay with me, because the next ancient evidence helps explain why this debate continues even today. And when we're finished, tell me whether it changed your perspective. Consider this. Throughout history, countless believers have died under circumstances that left nobody to bury. Some were lost at sea. Others were consumed by natural disasters. Many became martyrs. Yet nowhere do the scriptures suggest their resurrection will somehow be incomplete. The Christian hope has always rested not in preservation of human remains, but in the faithfulness of God. This brings us back to the Book of Enoch. Its vision, focus on the destination of the Spirit. The New Testament, focus of certainty of the resurrection. Neither text states that cremation changes where a soul waits, or whether God can raise the dead. So why so many people still believe otherwise? To answer that, we must examine how later traditions and church history shaped the modern debate. Because over the centuries, new questions emerged, new customs developed, and different Christian traditions arrived at different conclusions. Some strongly preferred burial. Others eventually accepted cremation under certain circumstances. Understanding why requires us to leave the first century and follow the story through history itself. As Christianity spread, burial remained the overwhelming practice. The earliest Christians buried their dead not because they believed God required an intact body, but because burial reflected the hope of resurrection. To them, the grave was temporary. Death was not the end. It was a sleep, awaiting the return of Christ. At the same time, many Romans continued to cremate their dead. For them, cremation was simply part of their culture. As Christianity grew, burial gradually became a visible expression of Christian identity. Not because fire could destroy the soul, but because burial distinguished the Christian community from many surrounding customs. Over the centuries, burial became so closely associated with Christian tradition that many believers began to assume it was the only acceptable option. Yet the Bible itself never contains a direct command forbidding cremation. Instead, much of the debate grew from tradition, culture, and differing interpretations of resurrection. Before we reach our final conclusion, I'd like to hear from you. Has anything you've heard so far changed the way you think about cremation? Or has it confirmed what you already believed? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read as many of them as I can. Today, Christians around the world hold different convictions. Some choose burial because of family tradition or personal conviction. Others choose cremation for practical reasons, financial, or personal reasons. Yet across these differences, the central Christian hope remains unchanged. Not confidence in this condition of the body, but confidence in the power of God. Which brings us back to our original question. Does the Book of Enoch reveal what happens to the cremated? The answer may not be what many expected. Because while Enoch describes where the spirits of the dead wait before judgment, it never teaches that cremation changes their destination. Instead, its focus remains fixed on something far more important: the life a person lived before death. We've examined the Book of Enoch, the Old Testament, the teachings of Jesus, the writings of the apostles, and nearly 2,000 years of Christian history. So, what is the evidence actually show? First, the Book of Enoch describes the spirits of the dead waiting for the final judgment. Its attention is fixed on the soul, not the condition of the body. Second, the New Testament places its confidence not in human burial customs, but in God's power to raise the dead. And throughout Scripture, the hope of resurrection rests not on preserving human remains, but on the Creator, who gives life. Whether someone returns to the earth through burial, is lost beneath the sea, or is consumed by fire, the question has never been whether God is able to restore life. The greater question has always been whether humanity is prepared to stand before Him. That is where both the Book of Enoch and the Bible place their greatest emphasis. History shows us that funeral customs have varied across civilizations, But the central message of the scriptures remains remarkably consistent. Death is not the final chapter. Judgment lies ahead. Hope belongs to God. Perhaps that is why the Book of Enoch never spends time debating cremation itself. It's a concern is not how the body returns to the earth. It's a concern is whether humanity will be found righteous when the day judgment arrives. That is the question the ancient text leaves with every reader. If today's investigation helped you see the Book of Enoch and the scriptures from a new perspective, subscribe to the 9th tablet. Every week, we investigate the Bible, the Book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and other ancient writings through careful research and historical evidence. Next week, we'll investigate one of the most mysterious passages ever attributed to Enoch, and why it continues to divide scholars and believers to this day. You won't want to miss that investigation. Until then, keep searching, keep questioning, and never stop exploring. Because every ancient text has a story waiting to be uncovered.